Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I am your host, Lori La Bey, and founder of Alzheimer Speaks. Basically, Alzheimer Speaks was created because my own mother lived with dementia for 30 years, and it was life-changing. And there were those difficult times, but boy, there were some really beautiful moments during that 30-year journey as well. So I'm so glad that you are with us today. We're going to have an exciting conversation. We're going to learn about the Healthy Minds Registry, which actually is for people that don't have dementia and who are over 50. So you're going to want to stay tuned to this because this information is absolutely critical for all of us to learn more about our brains and how they react to different things. And so it's gonna be a fun conversation. If you haven't subscribed to the show yet, I would urge you to do so. Then you'll just be alerted every time we do shows a couple of times a week. This is True Talk Radio, so we're not about sound bites, but giving you sound information from all levels and all corners of the world. And I love doing this show because I learn so much every time I do it. We're all about sharing new techniques and tips and resources for all of us to live graciously alongside dementia. We also are known as not just an advocacy-based company, but also one that helps brand companies' footprints and kind of expands their brand through our various platforms because we do a lot more than just the radio show. We have something called Dementia Chats, which are video conversations where our experts all have dementia. We have a panel discussion. In fact, later this week I'll be posting one on holiday stress triggers for those living with dementia that is just loaded with great tips and examples of what anxiety can do and how to try to avoid it, especially during the times of holiday seasons. And I always like to give a shout out to a couple of organizations before we get started. One is Stall Catchers. If you're not familiar with them, they are actually doing real Alzheimer's research, and we as the public can participate by just playing a video game. And that video game is called Stall Catchers. So go check them out at stallcatchers.com and be part of the movement. Help push research forward. It's a fascinating and fun thing to do. They have kids as little as 9 playing this game and up to 96. So wide range, and again, anywhere in the world can participate in this. Second, I want to talk about the memory cafes because they are so vitally important. We've got about 800 of them now in the U.S. They've just sprung up. Many are just grassroots efforts, and they're a place where people with dementia and a care partner can meet others on the same journey. And again, it's not about separation. It's about pulling people together so they have peer support and just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it also is free in most locations. So check out memorycafedirectory.com. That's memorycafedirectory.com. And last, I'm just going to shout out because you might be looking for some gift ideas this holiday season. So check out this book called Parental Dementia, which has a lot of those critically important questions that families have once a diagnosis hits their house. It really helps families guide them through all those difficult things that pop up. The author is Keith Gallus, and he has spent over 20 years helping families work through all the questions throughout this journey. And the book has got some great worksheets also in the back to kind of keep your thoughts and your needs straight. You can purchase that by going to parentaldementia.com. That's parentaldementia.com. And he is offering our audience a discount. So just when it comes to that discount code, just type in Lori, Lori. Again, the discount code is Lori, Lori, and you'll save $5.99. Can't beat that at all. Well, let's go ahead and introduce our guest today. We are just thrilled to have Dr. Ira Goodman with us, and he is the Medical Director of Neuroscience at the Accelerated Enrollment Solutions, known as AES. He is a board-certified adult neurologist specializing in neurodegenerative diseases, including Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. He is also the founder and former director of the state-funded Memory Disorder Center of Central Florida. So welcome, Dr. Goodman. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you on the show. I think this is going to be an enlightening conversation that I hope a lot of people gravitate to and help spread the word of the existence of the HealthyMinds Registry. But before we get to our line of questioning, I always like to ask every guest if they've been personally touched by family or friends with dementia.
Yes, we've had some people in our family who've had that, and again, without autopsy confirmation, you don't know for sure it's Alzheimer's, but probably has been Alzheimer's disease. It's the most common cause, and the course certainly was typical.
Okay, wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much for taking time with us today. Why don't we start out first with telling us exactly what the HealthyMinds Registry is, and who its partners are.
Sure. Well, the HealthyMinds Registry is an online research initiative to understand how healthy brains age. The purpose is really to identify lifestyle factors that can impact cognitive decline, whether it's due to normal aging, which is the most common cause of cognitive decline as we all get older, or if it's due to something more pathological like Alzheimer's disease. Hopefully, the study will identify ways to prevent or slow down cognitive decline, whether it's related to normal aging or what's related to something more significant. And if a signal is seen during the periodic testing, during the study or during the registry trial, the person will be alerted, and they'll either see their physician to see why possibly they might be showing the decline. And I could tell you a lot of the time something is found that is treatable or reversible. It's not uncommon for a person to come to our clinic with concerns about having early Alzheimer's disease, and when we go over their medication list, we find that they're taking Benadryl to help them sleep. Well, Benadryl is what they call an anticholinergic, which directly fights one of our main memory neurotransmitters called acetylcholine. So when we ask the person to stop their Benadryl for sleep, and all of a sudden their memories return to normal, and we find out it's not Alzheimer's. So don't be afraid to go get checked if there is some concern for cognitive decline, because frequently it's something else and something that can be fixed or treated. Likewise, in the HealthyMinds Registry, if there is a signal that there is some decline and it seems it might be related to the earliest stages of Alzheimer's disease, the person will be alerted to the availability of appropriate clinical trials, which can evaluate them to see if they would be appropriate to participate in a clinical trial. And during the clinical trial screening, the patient frequently gets more testing that either will help affirm or not affirm the suspicion of probable Alzheimer's disease.
Okay, great. Who are the partner companies that you're working with on this? I would imagine you probably have a few.
Well, it's Synexus, which is a site network, and they work under Accelerated Enrollment Solutions, which is under business unit of PPD. So it's a little bit complicated relationships, but again, it's Synexus is the clinical trial site that is directly involved with this. This is modeled after an identical trial that's been going on now for over 4 years in England at the University of Exeter by Dr. Clive Ballard. So they've enrolled over 25,000 participants and over 4 years. And what's very interesting is the retention rate. In other words, the people who stay in this trial has been over 90%, which means the patients or people are finding it very beneficial and are enjoying it. Because not only do people register for the registry, what they do is they fill out questionnaires and they get yearly cognitive testing. And during the year, they also get updates on what's new in research in Alzheimer's disease, what they can do to slow down their cognitive decline by activities. And they're also updated on the most recent clinical research. And all the clinical research now is becoming more and more very encouraging, especially with the recent announcement of a positive study for disease modification with an antibody against one of the signature proteins, amyloid. The only requirement to participate in this registry is that you're 50 or older, you have no obvious cognitive problems when you start, and that you have access to a computer, and that's it. And the way you can register is simply go to SynexusHMR.com. The HMR stands for HealthyMinds Registry, and Synexus is SYNEXUSHMR.com. You fill out a few questions, and then you're on your way.
Okay, wonderful. Now you had mentioned that this study is going on already for about 4 years overseas, and we're hearing more and more about the impact of lifestyle. And you had mentioned that that's part of the registry itself in terms of getting people to work on some cognitive assessments, and then also some brain training. Games seem to be the norm out there. What are you guys doing that's different from some of these others that are out there?
Well, it's strictly 100% online, and we're obtaining a lot of data about lifestyle, about a person's medications, about their habits, and most of the registries are collecting that same data, but we're also supplying very frequent updates on what's new. The purpose is education, not just registry. And we're also advising the patients of clinical trials that are available if it should be indicated. And we're giving them feedback, we're engaging them, and it's really an intense program of patient participation and keeping them updated, and not just having them register and just get testing intermittently. It's really for their benefit, their education, and for our education as well, to see if we can find out what people can do to slow down their cognitive decline. It's estimated about a third of Alzheimer's disease worldwide is related to modifiable risk factors, and we're trying to identify exactly what those risk factors are and the best way to change them to decrease cognitive decline. So our registry is similar to other registries, but we're very, very comprehensive, and we've just opened up over the last few months, and we already have 8,000 people registered who are in the process right now of getting assessed, getting their testing done, and accruing all of their data. And soon they'll be participating in the cognitive enhancement games, which are fun to play, and they're available anytime online. And the only real work for the patient is once a year when they do the testing and they enter their data. And even that's spread out to make it as easy as possible for the patient to participate.
Okay. Well, fascinating. That's great that you've got 8,000 people registered already just in a few months' time, because, there's almost 6 million people in America that are currently living with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia, and that is just going to grow significantly. They're saying to maybe 14 million by 2050, and the cost is just exorbitant, both on the family side and state and national side. So we really do have to get a grip on this, and it is, I think, one of the highest priority items when you ask people what are they scared of now. I mean, it's right in the top 5, depending on who's doing the research on that. But dementia comes up. People are really, really afraid of this. So it's nice to see people stepping up and going, to the next basis. Are you looking at genetic factors at all with this study?
Not initially, but that's a target that we probably will be adding to the registry in the very, very near future. Collecting genetic data is something I think everybody should have genetic counseling prior to that, what it means. Because sometimes when you get your genetic data back, it either scares you for the next few years or gives you a false sense of security. So we want to make sure that when we do the genetic data collection, that the patients are fully informed of what it means and what it doesn't mean. We, our goal is to have 30,000 people participate over the next 5 years, and like you said, so far the enrollment's very, very encouraging.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic, because that's one of the biggest problems I think any of the studies have is, how do we corral people into being part of this? I have somebody on the line. Some people just call in and listen, but I'm just going to double check and see if they might have a question. I've got a caller here from a 215 number. If you have a question or a comment, now's the time to speak. I do have you live from a 215 number. Was there anything you wanted to ask? Nope, I guess not. So, okay, they may just be listening. That's one thing I can't tell the difference of, but I always like to give people the opportunity there. What are some of your hopes with this study? Do you have some key factors you're focusing on in terms of really trying to get answers to some key questions?
Sure. We've learned over the last few years that Alzheimer's disease doesn't start when you start getting forgetful, but it's a disease process that begins 20 to 25 years before people get any symptoms whatsoever. So we now realize we have a decades-long window of opportunity to identify people that might be developing this pathology and intervene. And like in any disease state, the earlier we get in, the better chance we have of being successful. And now we are looking at disease-modifying treatments that can actually alter the trajectory of the disease, which is very, very encouraging. Up to now, we've had 4 FDA-approved symptomatic therapies, the last of which was FDA approved in 2003. If you look at this year, I believe the FDA has approved over 20 drugs for cancer, but for Alzheimer's disease, the last drug that was approved was about 17 years ago. And, we're making great strides with cancer, and Alzheimer's disease we're not. And Alzheimer's is really a growing epidemic. The biggest driver for Alzheimer's disease is age. Every 5 years over age 65, the risk doubles of getting it. By age 85, probably about 30 to 50% of people have the pathology in their brain. At age 100, it's probably about 75%. And if predictions are correct, by 2050, the women are going to be lived to about 103, men about 97. And if we can't get a handle on this disease, do the math, and it'll just be intolerable for society to support.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's 103. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around the possibility of living that long. And then where's all my money going to go? And is there going to be enough? All those fun questions that go with that. Well, now, I know that you're doing, with the study, you're doing some cognitive assessments. And is that done online as well? Are they interviewed, or is that a form they take, or do they need to go to someplace local? How? Because I know you said everything's pretty much online. How does that work with the cognitive assessment?
Everything is done on the computer with different tests. It tests concentration. They test reasoning. It tests what they call paired learning. There's one test called trail making where patients just draw lines from the number 1 to the letter A, then the letter 2, the letter B, and that's a very, very good test for executive function and concentration. So the testing is fun, but it's very comprehensive, and they're all validated tests, and they give us a very, very good understanding of the patient's baseline, and then we follow them yearly with the same test to see if stability is maintained or if there is a decline.
Okay. And then with, the games and stuff people play, because a lot of people, once they start those, they really like those. Is that something that they can continue to use after the study is over, or is it just during the study? And how long of a period of time is the study for people who enter?
Sure, the study is lasting 5 years as of now, and the brain games will be available at any time, day or night, for the patient to participate with. And they're really a lot of fun. One is called Odd Man Out, where you click on a design that's different than the other 2 designs. There's one called Balloons, where there's little math puzzles inside the balloon, and you have to get it solved before the balloon rises to the top of the screen. So they're all a lot of fun. One is Slider. I don't know if you remember those little plastic tiles that you move around to make a picture or get the numbers in order. That's online.
Sure.
But everything is online. And again, these different games actually serve a purpose, because when we play these games, we're forming more synapses or connections between our brain cells. And so they are therapeutic. It's good to do anything, writing with your left hand if you're right-handed, learning a new language. But these games are fun and they're effective, and that's one of the perks, I think, to participate in this registry, is that it's a therapeutic as well as observational study.
Okay, wonderful. I had to laugh when you said the slider thing. Right away, I thought of White Castles.
Oh, right.
Instead
we
of the game.
want to stay away from White Castles. Based on the fat content.
Oh, too funny. So will there be any video interviews where they're actually talking with somebody, or is it just all really kind of on their own and self-guided, so they don't have to have interaction with others?
It'll be self-guided, and but it'll be very, very clear and very, very simple, because a lot of people, especially over 50, and I could speak from experience, are not very computer savvy. So they're going to be very, very simple and very direct. And if there's any questions at all, they'll be answered immediately by any of the participants.
Okay. And then one of the questions I know that always comes up with people is what's it going to cost me, to be part of this? They're always kind of looking for a trip line, where they said it wasn't going to, but it is. I think there's some fear on that because, dollars are tight with a lot of people these days, and they really want to know up front what they're getting into. And I know with trials, you guys have to be extremely specific on that. So why don't we talk about that?
There is absolutely no cost to the person who's participating. They're donating their time to participating. And the only cost to them is giving up some time to do the questionnaires and the testing once a year. And like I said, it's spread out, and it's beneficial because the brain games will be enjoyed and will be therapeutic. And also the person will be updated periodically by what's going on in the world of dementia, the research world. Everybody's interested in the Chinese new discovery that was just okayed by the Chinese government, the drug made from seaweed, oligominate. And again, what it does, it seems, it's a sugar in the seaweed that seems to suppress certain bacteria in the gut. And by suppressing that bacteria in the gut, it apparently is felt to reduce brain inflammation. And I'll tell you, one of the largest targets now for research in Alzheimer's disease is trying to cut down on brain inflammation called neuroinflammation. We used to say the signatures of Alzheimer's disease were the two misfolded proteins, what they call the amyloid plaque, which is outside of the brain cells, and the phosphorylated tau, neurofibrillary tangles, which are inside the brain cell. But now there's a third very important component, and neuroinflammation. In fact, a person can have amyloid in the brain, amyloid plaques in the brain, and the neurofibrillary tangles in the brain, and have those two signature proteins for Alzheimer's disease. But if they don't have inflammation, they don't get dementia. In fact, there's researchers that termed it the resilient brain, and it's meaning that the pathology is there, but there's no neuroinflammation, so there's no neurodegeneration. So all the targets now are really fighting inflammation, and one of the things that seems to be able to fight inflammation is lifestyle modification, like exercise.
Exercise, that word for some of us, it just makes us want to run, you know. But it is, there's so many different forms of exercise too. What types of exercise are you recommending for people? What have they found helpful over in the UK, where they've been doing this study for a while now?
The exercise programs really have to be individualized based on the patient's other, or if any other medical issues, and their own habitus and what they've done in the past for exercise. But we do know that inactivity is a risk factor to get Alzheimer's disease. In fact, a lot of people now are calling inactivity the new tobacco, because it is that dangerous or toxic to brain health. And, you know, there's no set prescription for what the best physical activity would be. It should be tailored. Even walking 20 minutes a day in some studies has been felt to be helpful. We do feel, though, that a mixture of aerobic exercise and resistance training seems to be a very good combination, if you can do it, for brain health. And, you know, there was a very, very powerful study published about 5 years ago, called the FINGERS trial, the Finnish geriatric study. And what they did is they took over 1,200 people between the ages of 60 and 77, and they had vascular risk factors. In other words, they had hypertension, diabetes. They were cognitively normal or near normal, and it was a 2-year trial, and they put half of the people just on general recommendations on healthy lifestyles, but the other half got put on a regime that included exercise that was individually tailored. And those people had muscle strength training 1 to 3 times a week, and aerobic 2 to 5 times a week. At the end of the 2 years, the people who were on the tailored, structured exercise program, along with nutrition and cognitive training, like we get with these brain games and management of vascular risk factors, had a 25% better outcome than the people who are just on the medical advice.
Wow, that's pretty significant.
Very significant.
I had the head of the study on the show, and I just found it fascinating. It was really interesting, you know, how she broke everything down. And I got so many comments from people on how hopeful they felt after that, because they were like, well, this I can do, this I can change. And now I've been given some reasons to do that, versus a lot of people, I think, poo-pooed it because what's good for your heart is good for your brain. And they're like, well, yeah, but what's the proof? And now there's more studies coming up with more statistics to back exactly the whys and the hows of the process itself, which makes a big difference there.
Well,
go ahead.
In fact, about 5 I was going to say, about 5 years ago, a large trial was published. They took all the studies that they could find that saw how exercise improved people with mild Alzheimer's disease and prodromal Alzheimer's disease, called mild cognitive impairment, and compared it to the studies that were done on how well the FDA-approved drugs treat these patients. And it turned out the physical activity studies had better outcomes than the outcomes in the trials that looked at how efficacious the medications were.
That doesn't surprise me. Same with, you hear about all the studies with music, and yet the they won't allow the doctors to write a prescription for music to be in a routine, and it's like, hello, it'd be a heck of a lot cheaper than some of these other things, and it wouldn't have some side effects that that are at risk there. Now, that's one thing we didn't talk about is, are there any potential risk factors for somebody signing up for the registry that they should think about ahead of time? Because you think of anything nowadays, I mean, especially if you're watching any TV commercials, there's just a list of, and it might cause this or it might, do this. Is there anything our audience should be aware of and contemplate prior to joining the registry?
No, I really can't think of any. The data that's entered into the trial is strictly confidential. It goes nowhere other than in the trial. No drugs are administered. And I think the only real risk to the person is not participating, because this is an opportunity. If they're destined to get cognitive decline, this registry is really an opportunity to be proactive and intervene early before the decline starts, either by brain training or detecting a subtle change that you might not see unless you have the cognitive testing performed.
Okay. And as far as I was going to ask you about privacy, so you answered that, because that is such a huge factor. It seems like every time somebody says, "Oh no, we're secure," and then all of a sudden there's a breach. But that's just the world we live in right now, as a whole. But knowing that HIPAA compliance is pretty stringent in terms of trying to protect that data as well. Do you know when you would be releasing some of the outcomes? Will that be like on an annual basis, or what are you looking at in terms of that? Would people be getting feedback and be able to see, okay, I participated in this now, what good did it do? What did you learn?
Well, I think we'll have our first real understanding of the efficacy of the trial and what the trial is going to sort of promote or present after the first year, when we can compare the baseline data to the data that's collected at the 1-year testing mark. So after that, then I think analysis will be done, and we'll have a better idea of where to go. Now, also, too, as I mentioned, there will probably be some genetic testing at some point offered in this program, and that's still being worked out. Okay,
sounds good. And again, people can go to the website, and that is synexushmr.com. That's synexushmr.com. And go ahead and sign up for the study. Again, you have to be over 50 and you have to not be diagnosed with dementia. Is there any other criteria offhand that can help people screen out before they get into it? Because I know sometimes, I'll hear from people like, well, I thought I was okay, and then I got halfway through it, and then it was like, nope, it kicked me out for this.
I was going to say, just having internet access and a computer. And in the trial, too, the patient's going to be asked if they would have any interest at some point to hear more about the availability of clinical trials, if they are available in their region, and, of course, if they would be interested in participating.
Okay.
But I think that the type of person, the population, they're motivated. And, the research now is, most studies now being conducted are going to be conducted in the near future are for disease modification, to actually treat the disease itself, not just a symptomatic therapy that may or may not help for a short time.
Okay. And I think people are really glad to hear that shift in things, because there's been a huge push out there for that, along with the cure versus care. And I think people will look at this registry as part of that care model, help care for me now, before this journey hits me personally, but it'll also make it easier for me to understand, what causes it, what prevents it, how I can help somebody who is living with it as well, because you said it'll have that educational component. And again, there would be an annual cognitive assessment and then lifestyle and medication questionnaire. And then you'll have inform people of kind of the latest advancements in research. And then there's the free brain training games to help people, that are participating stay sharp. And then they'll also be able to be, one of the first to learn about new clinical trials as they pop up, if that would be appropriate. And I think even if somebody isn't showing signs, a lot of people would like that information so that they can then kind of be a steward to help pass that on to some others who might not be aware of that as well. And it would be lovely to see you guys surpass even, the 25,000 people that the UK has signed up, and really get America on page with this. There's been, it seems like, such resistance, and we've made a lot of progress, I think, in the last 5 years in terms of even just talking about things like the registry or dementia-friendly communities. But we really have a very long way to go in order to find our answers, and we can't get the answers if we don't have people participate in these very important studies. I can't urge people enough to take the time to do that. Now, Dr. Goodman, one question I know that it will be on people's minds. Can you tell people, how much time a day or a week do they need to spend on this? How often should they be playing these brain games and things, or is that all a variable? Is there a minimum, and then people can kind of do more if they so choose?
I think it would be based on the enjoyment level of the games, and they are very, very enjoyable. People say, well, why don't I just do Sudoku or jigsaw puzzles? And we found that people get very good at doing those games, doing the mechanism of the games, but really don't learn anything. These brain games that are on the website and involved in the trial, in the registry, really are very, very innovative and fun and different. And that's the key, I think, for forming new synapses and new connections in the brain. And even people, and we're hopefully the people who are in the registry, most of them won't decline over the 5 years. But these brain games will be very therapeutic, even to maybe stave off normal cognitive aging. Like every organ, the brain ages, and we start getting a little slowing of processing speed, having difficulty juggling multiple cognitive balls at once, multitasking. These brain games will be helpful in, staving even that off, we think. And there's no downside to trying it. And the least you'll get out of it is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is great to hear. Will people get pinged if they're not participating enough? Will they get an email reminder or something if they need to up their activity level?
No, that would be more optional. The only ping they would get is if they don't complete the yearly testing, which is, goes over hours, but it's spread out over time. So you don't sit down at one time and complete all the testing and questionnaires. It's spread out. But it's important to collect this data to make sure this registry is worthwhile to conduct.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well that makes a lot of sense. Is there anything that we missed? Anything else that you'd like to cover that I didn't ask you?
Oh no, it was comprehensive. The only thing I wanted is the exercise issue, because that's the most widely studied behavior modification that we think can slow down cognitive decline. There's it was relatively recently there's a protein that's in the family of growth factors called brain-derived factor, and what it does, it causes neurogenesis, growth of brain cells, and it also protects the brain cells from damage. And brain-derived neurotrophic factor is made in the brain, and it goes back and forth through the blood-brain barrier. So when we measure it in the blood, 75% is from the brain. Well, when we exercise, it's been shown that this brain-derived neurotrophic factor increases 200 to 300% just from exercise. And
Wow.
we feel that's one of the explanations of why exercise is good for brain health, let alone increasing the blood flow to the brain, reducing inflammation, and stress as well. There are two stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline doesn't get into the brain, but cortisol does. And there is a link between high cortisol levels in the brain and the development of Alzheimer's disease. Well, most people who exercise feel that exercise is a very, very good stress reducer. So there's so many pathways that exercise is good for brain health. And that's probably one of the strongest lifestyle changes I mentioned that we can do. But it's just like in the Fingers trial. You look at nutrition, you look at exercise, you look at cognitive training. So it's good to have multifaceted behavior and lifestyle changes. So if you kind of back off on one, you have others to pick up the lag, rather than just depend on either exercise or just diet or just cognitive training. We like to have a multimodal approach.
Which makes a lot of sense. It just makes a ton of sense. I know for me, with just adapting to my work lifestyle, I sit way more than I need to, and I'm trying to get myself on some kind of schedule to get up and move, because I sit in front of this dang computer constantly, and now I don't go to meetings. I have video conferences, and I mean, it's getting worse. I don't even get into my car and go, like I used to go. And I don't think I'm alone in that. And yet the demands of jobs and lifestyles and the way we communicate has really taken away a lot of the, just normal exercise that we used to, get in a day. And so I know for me, I personally still struggle with that, and it's definitely on my list to do better with, because I just turned 60. I can feel the muscle loss and the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's like my whole body's changing, and I sit here and I interview people on this stuff, and I have to become more active myself in terms of walking the talk with some of this that I learn as well, not just be a voice piece, but really, walk the talk with that. So do you guys do anything, is anything with meditation incorporated? Because I know that I believe there's been studies as far as the cortisol to reduce the stress with that as well. And just interested if that is part of the registry of practices that people could put in play.
Not yet, but that's certainly a thought. And I think that the study may evolve over the years that it's conducted. Things will be added, maybe some things will be taken away. One of the things that's not in the trial but should be stressed, as you were talking about exercise and nutrition, is sleep. That's very, very forgotten a lot of the times. And, we've found over the last couple of years that when we sleep, we're clearing out the toxins in our brain. And one of the toxins that we clear is the amyloid, which is one of the signature proteins for Alzheimer's disease. And we used to say, well, people with Alzheimer's disease don't sleep well. But now we're thinking, well, maybe poor sleep may contribute to Alzheimer's disease. So sleep is so important. There's no magic number on the number of hours of sleep. Everybody's different, but a target of about 7 hours is felt to be a reasonable target to try to attain. And people, if they don't sleep, need to find out why they're not sleeping and have that corrected. And, for example, like obstructive sleep apnea, and there's a lot of causes, correctable causes of poor sleep.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, for sure. And the sleep apnea, I mean, that's just almost a crisis in itself in our world, or the stress that just keeps people up, flipping and flopping. And I was one that I used to get up in the middle of the night and do work, and so that I could go back to sleep and stuff. And I do much better. One of my favorite interviews that I was watching was Rudy Tanzi, and he kind of he loved, and he was very proud of being a multitasker and didn't need much sleep. And he's like, not anymore. That's gone to the top of the top of the charts for him.
Well, Rudy Tanzi came up with the name Resilient Brain, and he has this very fascinating theory of infection as a trigger for Alzheimer's disease. In fact, I was out with him the other night at the CTAD meeting out in San Diego, and I spent several hours with him. He's a very brilliant, enjoyable person.
So are you a musician too? Because I know he's very much hangs out with the musicians.
No, but I tinkered in the piano, but he was on the keyboards for Aerosmith, and in fact, where we were at, there was a piano sitting there, and he got up and played the most beautiful music that I think I've heard in the last 20 years. He's so multifaceted.
Yeah, that's what I've heard about him. I've never met him in person. I would love to meet him and have him on the show here as well. Got another caller from a 954 number, and I'm just going to see if they have a question. 954, did you have a question or a comment?
Hi, good afternoon. This is Nicole Silviano. I just want to say I'm a huge fan of Ira, and I have one question. I want to know what you would recommend to reduce the likelihood of ever developing Alzheimer's, for instance, physical activity.
Ira, did you get that?
Yeah, I didn't get the last couple words.
Okay.
Is there any physical activities you would possibly recommend to those to, reduce the likelihood of ever developing Alzheimer's?
Okay, so physical activities that they could do to reduce Alzheimer's or possibly avoid it?
Well, it's never too early to start, and physical, exercise. Number one, again, it fights diabetes, fights stress, it fights inflammation. A good diet, and we don't have the magic formula for a good diet yet. What we do feel is that diets low in saturated fats, high in protein, low in carbohydrates, kind of like the Mediterranean style diet, but getting your sugar from vegetables rather than fruit, and a low salt diet. There's some even very recent experimental animal evidence that a very high salt diet can contribute to the abnormally folded tau protein in the brain in Alzheimer's disease. But it's interesting. We used to think that Alzheimer's disease is a disease of the elderly. Well, in most people, it starts in middle life. And in fact, if you look at brains of people across all stages of life, we probably have our maximal brain volume at about age 27. And then you start seeing some very, very subtle cortical thinning, thinning of the brain. And then by age 60, it actually starts getting smaller, about 1% a year. So brain changes begin earlier than we ever imagined. And it's never too early to go ahead and start lifestyle modifications, which are very important. There's a group of people over 80 we term superagers. These people, although they're 85 or 90, have memories the same as people who are 40s and 50s. And, we're not sure why it happens, but they can even accumulate the pathology for Alzheimer's disease, but not get dementia, the so-called resilient brains. And, we've found recently that loneliness seems to be an independent risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. And these superagers, have a certain type of brain cells called von Economo cells, which are cells that mammals have that are socialized animals. They're for socialization, social intelligence, like, elephants have them, porpoises have them. Well, superagers have 5 times more than non-superagers, suggesting that socialization is a very important part of preventing cognitive decline. And also by exercising, you're socializing, by doing cognitive training, by getting out with people. So lifestyle modification, I think, can start at any age to hopefully stave off dementia when you're older.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Nicole, very valuable information.
Great. Thanks, Nicole, for calling in.
Thanks, Nicole.
No, that was wonderful. And, you mentioned that social aspect. I've been pushing that for years. I think that there's just such a huge difference when people are socially connected. I truly think that's why my mom lived as long as she did, because she stayed socially connected. And I talk with many people who are diagnosed with various forms of dementia, and they say they feel more purposeful than they ever did in their whole life. in terms of staying connected, and some of them even get bullied for what they do because they don't sound like they have dementia, because people have these stigmas in their head of what someone's going to look like and sound like and be able to do. And they always say, but they have no idea how I break down when I go home. It's taken all my energy to kind of perform and connect. And I think that that's a real valid key there. Well, this has just been, I think, a wonderful conversation. And again, people can get involved by going to SynexusHMR.com. That's HMR for Healthy Mind Registry.com. Again, SynexusHMR.com. And learn about the Healthy Minds Registry. And I'm hoping that you'll sign up so that we can, get that 30,000 people that they'd like in this registry, so we can really collect a lot of data. It's going to help all of us in the long run. Again, Dr. Goodman, thank you so much for your time today. I think this has been really a hopeful and uplifting conversation of what people can do, because they're always asking, what can I do to make a difference? And this, being part of the study, will make a difference, will it not?
Oh, it will. And people have to be advocates for themselves. And by entering into this trial, that's a big step. And it's a commitment, but it's a commitment that will be certainly worthwhile, just like exercising and doing other things to stave off cognitive decline. Because, like I said, people are getting older and people are developing it. The population over 65 is doubling, over 85 quadrupling. And as we all know, this disease is not going away. Nope, it's going to go out kicking and fighting, I'm afraid to say. It's hanging on for the long run there. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. Again, the links are on both the radio page as well as the blog. And again, I encourage you very much to go to the website. And again, that is SynexusHMR.com. And again, for our listeners, thank you so much for listening. I've really appreciated you hanging in there with us. Spread the word. Continue to like, click, and share this program, because that is really how you've raised awareness and spread the word of Alzheimer's Speaks, our work, our radio show. And, people need this information. They deserve this information. So it'll just take a second of your time. And again, don't forget to click on that subscribe button so you can always be updated. Helping each other out by these little things of sharing knowledge, build a sense of community and collaboration and comfort. And we all deserve that. And I truly believe that's the way we're going to win this battle against Alzheimer's disease. Again, our main website is alzheimerspeaks.com. You go to the initiatives and projects and tab, and you'll find all kinds of resources there. Have a blessed holiday season. Bye, everyone.
It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Hey, everybody, Jared Sebesta here, host of Retire Repurposed. Now, this podcast is about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. We believe retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful, purposeful, and fulfilling season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.